Okay, we should be live. And we will let people trickle in. So in the meantime, if we want to, I think we can wait a little bit for introductions too, just to give people a little bit of a moment. But do we want to say what our favorite book in the so far this month has been? If we have a favorite book?
Oh, geez, let me think about this. Pressure.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
What did I read? Everything I've read now is flown out of my head.
I know. I feel like June has been the shortest and the longest month, both in one. It's
yes.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy that it feels like the end of June already.
But we're only mid-month, yeah.
Yeah. But it's like once you start like planning things, you're like, well, then that suddenly. I'm trying to think. I have been on a funk. I'm in a reading funk. Yeah, nothing's working for me. Actually, surprisingly, Old Man's War is really good.
Is that
I need to get to that one.
On audio that you're listening to? I forget.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'm listening to that on audio. There's like a local book club that I'm meeting up with, like to try to meet new people in my new city. And that was the book for the month, and I was like really like, oh, sci-fi. And too, like, it immediately, like, the main character is like a 75-year-old man. You're like, oh no. It's actually really good.
You never know, I guess. But I haven't heard very much about that one. So your review might be the first one I hear.
Is it like a fantasy book club?
Yes, but this is sci-fi. Yeah. So
it's sci-fi.
Yeah. I mean, the book club is a fantasy book club, but I think that they do the occasional. I think that they like
makes sense.
Sci-fi fantasy. Yeah.
Makes sense. I think my favorite read this month has been Thief so far. I am in the middle of a book that probably will like up it, but so far Stardust Thief was the most enjoyable and just like a really fun desert adventure. I had a good time with it.
I didn't realize you finished it.
Copy of that, so
I did.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I need to get to that one. I have it, but haven't gotten to it yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one.
I have it on hold at the library.
I think I started it like right when it came out, so early days.
Mine's probably This Vicious Grace. I had an ALC from NetGalley. It's really good. It's fantasy romance, I would say. It's got like the bodyguard trope.
Ooh.
And it's like, you know, that it's like her touch can kill, but I actually really liked the take of this one. It's like her touch, she like sources people's other powers. She like takes them in, but her touch can be so strong it kills them. So she's trying to find her perfect match, but it's really, really well done. I think people are gonna like it.
It's YA?
Yeah, she's 18 and I think he's 19.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you read Girl, Serpent, Thorn?
I did not. No.
Was it
like that one?
It's just that she can't be touched.
Yeah, I know. There's so many of those, I feel like.
Yeah.
Isn't that Blood and Ash? Isn't that too? I don't know. I haven't read it.
Well, she can't be touched for like not magical reasons. Like she's just not supposed to be touched, like for purity's
I thought it was
sake.
Like she couldn't. Oh no.
This sounds so good. I'm definitely gonna be picking that up.
Yeah, it's really good. And I think it's a duology, so I think I can handle it. I'm pretty sure that's what it is.
You made it.
Hey man, you're 4 books into a series right now.
I know, and I finished a series yesterday.
Love it.
Finished the Southern Reach trilogy yesterday. Not a favorite. Not a favorite.
But you did
the Southern Reach trilogy, by Jeff Vandermeer. The first one's Annihilation. It was adapted to that movie with Natalie Portman.
The kind of wacky, what's it called?
It's very weird.
It even has like its own genre, I think. Something wacky.
Yeah, and I feel like it kind of created the genre.
Yeah.
It's like very weird.
Kate, any standouts, or what are you currently reading?
I actually, we'll get into it later, but this one was probably tied with Paladin's Strength for my favorites of the month so far.
Ooh.
Paladin's Strength is great if you like fantasy romance. But it's another one it's the second book in Kingfisher's Saints of Steel series. And it's fun.
Those are the only Kingfishers that I was able to get, but they're physical copies and I have them now. So if someone puts a hold on it before the readathon potentially happens. We're in
I love
trouble.
how we're all in love with TK Fisher at the same time.
She's so good. I love
Yeah.
her so much.
Well, but this is so random because my friend Taylor picked up Paladin's Grace, not like she doesn't really follow the book internet sphere sort of, but she picked it up because another friend of ours was like, oh, I just recently read Paladin's Grace, you could check it out. So she's like having a T. Kingfisher moment now, like completely separate from all of the T. Kingfisher hype. So it's just like crazy timing that she also, I think she started with Paladin's Grace and then just like has been, I think, reading everything. T. Kingfisher.
So that's so interesting.
Yeah.
It's hard to resist. She's just fun. I love the banter and like her humor is, I think it doesn't work for everybody because I've definitely seen people say that they don't really understand the appeal, but like it's just one of those where if it hits, it really does. So
I'm excited to try it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead and then do channel introductions. So we'll just kind of start with that and then we'll go into book chat. I will start, I guess. I'm Maria from the channel Tea Books Magic. You are on my channel. You are watching this. And we are discussing today the fourth book in the Memoirs of Lady Trent series, In the Labyrinth of Drakes. We've been doing a read-along since, I don't remember what month we started, but we've been doing one a month and we have the last book coming up. We're technically reading it in June with the July live show. So if you've been following along, stay tuned for that. And on my channel, I read mostly high fantasy. I really don't read a lot of other genres. I'm very much, that's kind of my sweet spot is fantasy. I really have been getting into a lot of adult, political, denser, slower books lately and really loving those. And let's go, I guess, Kristen, sorry, we've got two Kristens. We'll go so Kristen.
Yeah. So I'm Kristen from Kristen Craves Books, and I think I read pretty much every genre. I'm open to everything. And I think because of all of you, I'm getting more into fantasy. I was actually looking at my Storygraph, and I think like 28% of my reads this year have been fantasy, and that's so odd for me. So yeah, that's a lot for me. And yeah, I've been loving it. So
that's awesome. I'm Kate. My channel is Kate Coy. I read primarily fantasy. I'll venture out into mystery and sci-fi and some of the other ones, sometimes like nonfiction or history, but mostly fantasy, first love. I think that's it. I've not been very active lately, so I've mostly just been doing these live shows, but it's been great so far.
And I'm Kristen from the channel Kristen Craves. No, I almost said Kristen Craves.
I do that too.
Oh my god.
I do that all the
because
time.
I always have like saying like your channel, like Kristen from the channel Kristen Craves Books. I'm Kristen from the channel Kristen is fully booked. I also read mostly fantasy, but I do read like a pretty decent amount of romance books as well. And like I'm always on the hunt for like the perfect fantasy romance, which I find is just really, really tough to like get both of those things right. Yeah, so that's kind of that's mostly my channel.
Perfect. We have someone who can't stay, but says they're loving this series. So thanks for stopping by anyway. And then I also just want to shout out, as part of the introductions, Sarah from Bright and Bookish, who was part of the reading along with us at the end of book 3. Sarah was our kind of, I would say, opposite of the spectrum. We've all had a lot of different reactions on the series, but Sarah didn't love the series and stopped at book 3. But they have been so wonderful and have been letting us continue the read along in their Discord chat. So that's linked down below. All the channels are also linked down below if anyone wants to check these people out and or join our read along. There's technically one book left, but we are always open to chat about any of the books, whether you're starting now, starting mid-series, wherever you're at. Okay, so with that, let's go ahead and move into, whoop. I made this banner to say spoiler free and it didn't save. So here we go. Spoiler free chat. Let's go around and discuss kind of what we thought about this. We'll try our best to keep this spoiler free for the books prior to this, but it is tough because it is the 4th book in a series. So we'll just kind of I think we'll keep this section pretty short and then go to spoilers in just a little bit. We are at the star ratings portion of the video. So if you have a star rating, go ahead and say it. Say what format you read it in. If you don't, feel free to not state one. Mostly for Kristen.
Thank you for the reminder, though.
You're last, so you've got time to keep thinking about it.
Perfect.
Graves, to my do you want to start, or do you want to kind of think about your rating?
No, I know my rating. Yeah.
Perfect.
I actually gave this one 4 stars. It's my favorite. I think by quite a bit. Because I didn't have any of the glaring issues from the other ones. I didn't really notice anything. In this one, I liked the setting. In this one the best. I like a storyline with a certain character I won't talk about the best. And the introduction of her brother I thought was really refreshing. So there was just so much that I liked about it. I thought she grew a lot as a character. And though the ending still was rushed, it was my favorite ending of them all. So I just liked this one the best.
That's great.
There's Sarah.
Yay!
I'd be so curious what they thought of this one if they had read it, because I actually think they could potentially like it. But
I think they would have liked this. I think they would like this one.
Watch this in bed.
Sarah, you should read book 4 anyway.
Yeah, I kind of want them to.
I also really liked this one. I ended up giving it 4.5 stars, I think. It's tough because I loved the third one, like even with some of the issues. I liked the format of that, but I think I would put this as my favorite of the series so far, because you get to see a lot more with Andrew, and I love getting to see family relationships. And then the character we'll talk about more later, loved that. And I think I liked that this felt like a really good balance of getting enough of dragons, but also getting more character moments. So it kind of hit this sweet spot for me.
Definitely.
Yeah, this one is
punishment.
You have to do this like a challenge or something. If you fail, that has to be one of your.
That and then the Mask of Mirrors.
That is hopefully like a good one.
Yeah, I know they've been putting that one off.
Book this one I think was absolutely my favorite in the series so far. Like, although like I think it had its like there were some things that I think were missing, and like I don't think she was as like crazy. Like I didn't think she got into as much hijinks as usual. It was sort of just like an established fact. Like they were just like, oh yes, of course you're going to do blank dangerous thing. Like it was just a given kind of at this point. So I missed some of like her humor, I think maybe wasn't quite as present in this book, but overall I think that this one was just like really fun. I was along for the ride the whole time. I like what Kay was saying, like I think it was a really good balance between like dragons and character and plot. And like this time, whereas like the dragon before, it was like their wings did this, or the arm joint did this, blah blah blah, and it was like comparing taxonomy of different like serpent draconic beings, whereas this one was more just like it was like a very like they're doing like a project specifically and trying to find out a solution. So it was like you could be along for the ride of like why are things not working that way. Like I just kind of liked the level of like science and academia and like how they were trying to like wrangle the money out of the government sort of to like make it work for what they wanted it. And yeah, just like I really liked the character development that happened, of like the character relationships. I feel like we kind of almost focused on like different side characters in each book. Like in the first book, it was definitely like Tom and Jacob and the old guy, I guess. And then in the second book, like Natalie was a big, new side character. And then in the third book, I feel like the young yeah, I was like, are we saying Jake? Yeah, Jacob and Suhail sort of were like featured side characters. And then definitely in the fourth book, I feel like Tom like played a little bit more of a role, and again with other people.
And her brother, yeah.
Oh, right, rating. I would say this was like a solid. I usually do like a 10, like a scale of 10 system. I feel like that gives me a little bit more leeway. I would say like 8.5. But like the endings, she loses it on the endings for me.
Definitely, I agree with the endings. This one was a reread for me, and then the last book of the series is the only one I haven't read prior. This is the one that I was most conflicted about on first read and on reread, because I just have like very opposite spectrum feelings. I really loved the relationships, but dragon wise, it was not my favorite book. So I love what you're saying exactly about what you all said about like Andrew. He was probably my favorite character in this book. I love the development of the relationship with Tom Wilker, and I think that kind of just the fact that we've had him present in so many books added to kind of his development compared to other characters. But in terms of the dragons, because we were following kind of this one project, I feel like we went back to not having as many of them. And I was sad about what they were doing with the dragons. It was less of like in the wild with them. And it was more, I get all of the reasons why, but it made me kind of depressed about the dragons. And then I also had some kind of just thoughts of like how realistic are all the discoveries they're making and the endings. So I still gave it 4. I've loved this whole series all along. But I think in terms of like with book 3 being so dragon focused, this one fell for me in that, but then was really strong. I think it was the strongest in terms of relationships. So
That's fair.
Spoiler-free chat otherwise. What do we want to talk generally about the plot and what we thought of kind of how the ending was done? Any other general spoiler-free thoughts?
I'm like, Kate, you just read it, so I'm like trying to think.
I think the only thing I have comment-wise on that is that I actually minded the ending less with this one than I think some of the other ones, because this one the pacing felt more even to me, like kind of throughout. And it did rush a little bit at the end, but it wasn't anywhere near as much as like the third one, where it's just all of a sudden things go crazy. There was definitely a lot happening at the end, but it felt more like a natural transition to me. So as far as pacing, I think this is one of the better ones for me too.
Yeah, and I thought the ending it's ridiculous, but not to the level that some of the other, like book 2, was it book 2? Yeah, I just find some of the endings are a bit too much. I thought, okay, I could get behind some of this.
Yeah. Keeping it spoiler free, I do think Sarah might have preferred this ending to the other ones as well, because it's less about like Isabella having an impact on a culture and more of Isabella making like a discovery outside of anything where people are involved, kind of, if that makes sense.
Yeah, like not political.
So it was.
Yeah, I feel like this one was. I don't feel like there was anything, at least that was glaring to my eye, that was overtly problematic in this one. Like, I feel like they weren't really in a colonialized place, right? It was more just that they have like a base there, that there was like a scale.
Yeah, they were just in the middle of the
presence.
Yeah, they were just like in the middle of the desert somewhere.
Kind of air inspired, I was kind of assuming.
Yeah, but it wasn't saying that it was one of their like colonized places. It was more just like that they did have a government presence, but it wasn't. I don't know. I felt like it was, but it was, and because of that, there wasn't like scheming within, I'm just going to say British, within like their own government. Like there was like nothing like really, really super problematic. It was more about like there was some political tension within the place there. But it wasn't like you said, like she didn't save the day. She didn't create any astounding resolution between those places, like between the different tribes involved. And yeah, I felt like it was not.
I feel like she was more conscious of the culture in this one for some reason. That is the vibe that I got from this one. Like she was becoming more aware that she's impacting the culture around her, and like she has to do certain things because that's the way it's done there. And like maybe she doesn't like it as much, but at least she does it because she acknowledges that a little bit more.
She still had her moments where she like didn't really talk or focus on the host family that she was living with, or like really even give us any insight on them, other than like a few sentences here and there. But I feel like with the shortness of these books, you also kind of have to make those choices. So it didn't feel as it didn't feel as problematic to me that we weren't really focusing in. It was just kind of like, we don't have time to deal with this. And we did focus on other people that they interacted with from that area.
Yeah, and I like that the tribes, it's not presented as like one singular culture. You kind of have the differences between the tribes, and you also get a little bit of her recognizing that she has a specific idea in mind of what they would be like, and then not everybody matches that. So I thought that was pretty interesting to have.
I'm trying to figure out if Kristen is frozen again.
I'm thinking yes.
I think yes.
You're gonna message her?
Being a bit fritzy, just going without me. Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
And I felt like this one had a lot more action too. Like it just seemed to as you're saying, the pacing, there wasn't as much downtime. It felt like one thing after the other was happening.
Yes.
I was more invested in it than I thought I was in the other ones.
I thought she could have stretched out into almost like 2 books or a bigger book, but I also think that the format just works with the size that she chose.
Yeah, and I like that the politics are part of it, but it doesn't feel like the focus isn't as strongly on it as it was in like 2, because that one kind of lost me a bit because it was too much of that. But this was like that right blend of all of the things.
And with this one, also the threads are kind of coming together. So even though there is political stuff, it's not like this random political scheme that she thought of that is just kind of like crossing her path, but more of we've already seen hints of these problems coming up and these kind of what it could mean for different countries and potential wars, and we're just seeing that kind of developed further. Did you all like the desert setting? I liked that we finally got a kind of desert storm scene because I felt like we didn't get as, I know that we talked about like the weather of the place, but I wanted something more deserty, and that seems when it finally was like, we're getting a setting moment.
Yeah, I like that. I'm not always a huge desert setting person. Like it's not a huge appeal for me, but I liked the way she did the atmosphere with it. Felt like you were kind of enmeshed in it, which was nice. Kind of, I mean, the one thing I liked about the second one was all the swamp stuff because it felt like you were there more. So this one was kind of the same, where it felt interesting.
Yeah, that's something I've noticed I like about these books is that each one's in a very different place. And you feel it.
I think the next one's in the mountains, right? For those
I think it is.
Right?
Yes.
I just started it. Yeah, I just started it.
Yeah, same.
I'm excited for that.
Yeah, I'm stoked for that.
What about, or Kristen, if you, sorry, Kristen is fully booked. Kristen with an E. If you want to add any other thoughts, let me know. Otherwise, I was just going to suggest talking about like really about Isabella's character in this one really quick, spoiler free, and then moving on to spoilers.
I think in general, I really like I felt like the established friendship and like co-academia thing with Isabella and Tom was like just so great. Like I'm never like secretly rooting for them to get together, which is so rare for me. If there's like anyway, if there's a possible couple, I'm always rooting for it. And it's like I never get that vibe with them. I'm just like so happy that they are established friends. And like at the beginning when he's like, well, you can't have me without Isabella, and like kind of vice versa. Like they're just like science buddies, which I love. Yeah, it just really, yeah.
And the way that they kind of make little, like they'll kind of correct themselves and how they would act to not like upset the other person's kind of insecurities, I thought was really just touching and kind of thoughtful and very considerate of them.
I feel like they have like a pretty good balance and like sense too of their strengths and weaknesses, and they use that as science buddies merging. They use their like strengths and weaknesses like as a co-force sort of thing. Like he does like all of like the political chatting and smoothing over and stuff like that. And yeah, I don't know. She like kind of like makes stuff happen in other ways. And he was like really sensitive about like, I don't think that you should like, I think something will upset you, maybe blah blah blah. Like with when they first arrive. Yeah, I love Tom as well.
And I like that there's all those rumors that they're together, but they don't let that really affect how they act. Because, you know, they could easily just be like, well, we can't be seen together. But they kind of they try and stop the rumors, but they're not like changing how they behave with one another. And I just love that.
Yeah.
And I think watching the transition from the first one through this one has been like one of my favorite things about this series, seeing them kind of grow like from basically hating each other in the first one to having this partnership now in this one.
Absolutely.
I totally agree.
And I like that both of them aren't the most. I like that they both have a reason why society kind of dismisses them. I don't think it would have worked as well if it was just with another research person, or even just like a research guy or man, and there wasn't something about him that they also kind of, that he was having to fight through and overcome odds of, if that makes sense. I like that he is dismissed because he's not of, nobler birth, whereas she has that, but she is dismissed because she's a woman, and they kind of have that understanding that they can relate to each other in that way, but it's still different stories. Yeah. I do wish that she didn't drop characters between books. I know we kind of talked about where she'll focus on specific people each book, and I do kind of wish, I think again, maybe that would have been if it was a bigger book. I think that then we would have more room for that, because I wish Natalie didn't just get like a throwaway line. And
we got one line of Natalie. I was hoping for so much more.
Just her moving out.
It's like she knows we want to hear about Natalie, so it's like, here's one line.
And then Jacob, I feel like young Jacob, I wish we'd gotten more of, which I do think Sarah's, I would have like assumed that if Sarah had read it, they would have said that we kind of took a step back. We took steps forward with the third book where we were including her kid, and then we kind of, again, almost like for convenience sake, he wasn't as much in this one. He was just away in school. I don't know what you all thought about that and his inclusion.
I know we always talk about this, but what's the timeline between 3 and 4? I never know. I can never figure it out. So like, how old would he be now?
I'm also really confused about timeline between 4 and 5, because the ending, I feel like, must have been at least 3 years. Like, there has to be that amount of time that the ending would take them.
Like, a memoir
at the beginning of,
like, I wish you would put at the beginning of the book, this is this year to that year. It's such an easy thing just to.
At the beginning of this book, book 5, sorry, at the beginning of book 5, Jacob is like 18. And I think 5 is actually like a significant jump in the future, because I kind of had the sense, like, I don't remember, it's been a while since I've read In the Labyrinth of Dragons, but I feel like he was like preteen.
10? Yeah. I don't know how old he was in this one. He was in school.
Yeah, I kind of got like 12, 13, 14 is my guess.
That makes sense.
That sounds right. I don't remember, even though I just finished it, but
I don't know if they mention it, but I also don't, those things go over my head. I did just also finish.
Yeah, they mentioned him being in school, but I don't know where that places him age-wise, but 12-ish seems right.
Mm-hmm.
And she mentions like he's upset he can't come, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like
I like that he's, I don't know. I didn't necessarily see it as a convenience. I saw it as just like a reality that he would be in school. I don't know. He had like a pretty, like, for him to have been included on the like sailing around the world in Voyage of the Basilisk, like that was a pretty cool introduction, like for
I wanted more letters back and forth to him, because even when that big thing happened,
fair.
That's not the ending, but the big thing that we've been all hinting at. When that happens, I feel like I get why she didn't maybe notify him in advance, but I wanted more of like a reaction or a discussion, or like, this is a big, life change that you're going to be affected by.
And I'm sure he would have been excited about that too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Didn't those letters like take months though to travel? That's kind of how I see that.
But we also, I feel like we go from months of like them hatching the eggs, and now we're in another season. So like, you could drop tidbits in.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other spoiler-free thoughts before we dive into it? Do we have any predictions? I guess no, predictions would be pretty spoilery too, but are we feeling excited? I know some of you have started the last one. Are we excited based on this one, or kind of how are we feeling overall?
I really have no idea where the last one's going, to be honest. I'm like very confused of how this is going to wrap up, or like Krista, I think you're farther into it than I am.
I'm not terribly far. I'm like 5 or 6 chapters in.
Yeah, I think I'm just 1 or 2.
Oh, okay, yeah. So I'm like, I'm at the point where it's like, okay, now we're going on the mission. sort of thing. I had the feeling, and I'll be vague, because this is a little bit spoilers, but I won't say the spoiler bit. But I'm feeling like the contribution, or like, if this is the thing that she's famous for, it's not really like a scientific discovery in her own field. And so that makes me feel like either there's more coming for that, or then I'm just like, it's great that she's famous and I like that she does work that she likes, but like, this isn't like, she didn't do anything like really cool scientific in this particular book. It was more like happenstance discovery.
Yeah, she's found something.
Yeah, and something that's like not like, it's not a dragon naturalist thing that she discovered.
No.
It has like connections to that, which maybe there'll be some piecing. I mean, there must be some piecing together with like sort of like the discovery from the third book, and she does make vague like, I didn't know everything. I hadn't pieced everything together yet. So like, I'm sure there's something to come. That's my sense, is that like, I feel like there must be more to come with like her scientific achievements.
Yeah, I'm just hoping we get the payoff in the end.
Yeah. I feel like there's a lot of threads that have to come together that you almost tackle too many things. Yeah. But my problem with the vague discovery is that it's in book 3, we also had another discovery, and I feel like it's too many for one person to come across in the span of their.
The second book too.
Yes. So it's
she happenstance come across something as well.
She's the luckiest person in the world.
It's sort of in the first book too, guys. Every time in the first book too, there was the cave with the salt, with the sulfur.
The first book,
she happenstance discovers a lot of stuff.
She does.
Yeah.
So
preserving bones.
That is the entire book, is what I would say. It's like the setup, and it's the concern of the entire book of book 4.
Yeah. And in the 5th book, it talks about like 5th, right? Yeah. In the 5th book, it already at the beginning like talks about, because it's a few years down the line, it like talks about like future implications of stuff to do with that.
One other thing.
You'll just have to read the book to find out, Sarah.
Little tidbits. I did want to talk about, I'm going to grab my book for this, but there were 2 kind of feminist like dialogues that happened in this book that I wanted to talk about because I feel like they're not spoilery. There was the one where she's talking to Andrew, and she kind of talks about how if she does something, great or extraordinary, then she's not like other women, and she's not like, she's considered an outlier of her gender, and she's, kind of praised for that. But if she does something that's considered a scandal or that's considered wrong, she's all of a sudden representing her entire gender. And it's kind of that discussion. So what are your thoughts on that? And then there was a different one that was also, but I'll bring my book because I don't remember the details of that one. But did you like how that was handled? It wasn't really discussed. It was kind of just dropped in there.
I feel like that's how she does a lot of the feminist themes throughout the series. It's just like, here's a little, I'm talking to somebody, here are my thoughts, but it's never explored a lot. But I did think she had a lot of interesting conversations with Andrew. And Andrew was kind of like, oh, I've never seen it. You know what I mean? I feel like he was seeing the world through her eyes in that way. But it always is just like a one-off. And then
her releasing, her like venting sort of her feelings. Yeah.
That's true.
I definitely don't.
I mean, she's not wrong.
No, it's a fair point. It's a fair point.
Yeah.
But it's like, did that play out? Like, I guess she tells us that that's what's happening outside, but because it's like her memoir, she's not including it. I don't know.
Yeah, I think you get more of kind of erasure than you get other things where like they just conveniently don't mention that she's involved in things, or they leave out her contributions to stuff. Like every time she talks to that colonel, he's continually talking about Tom doing stuff versus her doing stuff. But I think that's the only thing that you see where it's not just her venting, where you actually see more of some of the frustration she's dealing with. But
there was a lot of that too, which, I mean, and with the, I don't remember the name.
Yeah, the
Shake? Is that what
the brother?
Yeah.
Of the other character?
The person in charge. The person in charge in the location where she is. I mean, like that had other reasons as well, but I do feel like that there were times where she was like sort of snubbed, like especially at the beginning when she's first arriving, and there's like a little bit of I I think it's so much more present or like obvious because of the cultural differences as well, but it is also people of her own country who speak that way as well.
But wasn't she being kind of snubbed for other reasons that are kind of spoilery?
Yeah,
like
there was additional things particularly to that
sure,
character.
But yes. I think there were different things.
Yeah, but the colonel and then the lord at the beginning who's like sending them on the mission, he makes those comments. I did find the other passage that I kind of highlighted, and it was the one where she is, let's just say, being treated for something by a physician, and it's a female physician, and she kind of talks about how originally in her thought process she had actually discounted this female physician as being someone who was skilled at their job. And so she then is like observing the physician, and she's like, wow, you actually can do this. And then she's like, wait, this is how people view me. I'm having the same kind of, gender stereotypes, and I'm doing the same kind of thought process that society does toward me. And so I thought that was an interesting reversal of almost kind of her being more, almost the things that I do think Sarah wanted from her, of being more conscious about how she thinks.
Yeah, that's a great point, that she caught herself doing it and was like a little bit more aware. I do think that she does get more aware with a little bit with each book. It's not like life-changing growth in that regard, but she is like a little bit more, like, she didn't say horrible things about the culture. Like, she didn't make offensive view, like she had no offensive views about any of the cultural differences. There was never any time when she was like, well, I'll go along with it. Like, I didn't believe in it, but I'll go along with it for the sake of the dragons. Like, she was pretty just like, I'm here to do my work, and that's what's important to me. Like, I don't think we saw a lot of the house family because I don't think she was there much. Like, I don't think she cared about that. Like,
she had the one comment at the very beginning where she expected their guide, I forget, or I think it might have even been the sheikh, I'm trying to remember who it was specifically, but she like expected him, because he had been from the desert, to be kind of very like rough skinned and like just also very dressed in a rough way, and like expected him to look a certain way. And then she was like, oh, he actually, is dressed like a city person. And she kind of corrected herself on her assumption there. So I feel like even that was like a pretty good, more aware moment.
Yeah, and she has a moment later in the story too where she's about to do something that's risky and dumb, and she actually recognizes that it's risky and dumb. Like, not without some complaint, but I liked that she was actually capable of being like, okay, this isn't the right decision to make. So I definitely feel like I felt more of her growth in this one as opposed to some of the other ones. So I liked that.
You'll have to remind us of what that was when we get into spoiler.
Yeah, when we get into spoiler, I will.
I almost, last comment on this, I just think that there was also maybe less comedic asides, and I don't know if that helped. I don't know if that was part of like this helping us have this overall feeling, but I did think that maybe there were less kind of humorous one-liners.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I felt like it was like,
well, right, mid-sentence.
Will we ever find out? Whoop. You're back. Can you talk? Can we hear you? Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
Nope.
No.
Let's see. We'll give her a moment.
New city.
What was I going to say? Oh, the politics. I wanted to bring that up while we're kind of waiting for Kristen to come back. Sorry, not the politics, the religions. That was the one complaint also. It was almost like it took the place of the politics in my mind, where I didn't think the religions were very well explained. I feel like we were just told, I don't know if you're having trouble following them as well, but I feel like I don't really know what religion she is part of, or kind of what the different religions, they're almost like just named and then not really developed further.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. Like, I could make parallels to religions that I'm vaguely familiar with, just kind of knowing some of the details about what she's basing things on. But I think because it's so short, you just don't really get much detail on that. And I would have preferred to get a little bit more.
Right. Or just leave them out entirely almost.
Yeah, or just don't have it.
Because I feel like she's trying to make an excuse why certain things can't happen or why certain people are upset about things. So she just, well, religion's a good one to throw in because that creates conflict or whatever it is. But she doesn't, and I think she's expecting the reader, well, we know what religions exist in our world, so we can just infer, which is kind of lazy, and I don't think something Sarah would appreciate very much. But
yeah.
I
I think because you have this sister who's being kind of a religious representative, because you introduced that, I would have preferred to see more expansion on that, because otherwise it just feels like a throwaway thing. So I mean, either don't have the sister be in that position and have it be a problem that you just smooth over. I don't know. I didn't like that part as much.
And it felt like the sister acted in a way also that was a little convenient, where it was like, didn't she curse at one point? And then it was like, I think Isabel made a comment about how, oh, she didn't expect someone who was going into religion to be so kind of foul-mouthed or something along those lines. And it felt kind of unnecessary, like it didn't feel like the way that she would react. And then I also felt like we had characters when they go into the desert that it was like, we did get lines about them praying and having kind of ways to follow their religion, but also it was like, well, and that actually did kind of make sense of convenience-wise, where it was saying that they couldn't fast in the desert for survival reasons. They would do it when they got back. So it was kind of adapted in that way, but I did want more from it.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Well, I don't know if Kristen isn't coming back. Oh, wait, there she is. Hold on.
There she is.
Ah.
Is she there? There she is.
We're waiting on tenterhooks to find out what you were going to say.
Oh no, she's frozen again.
Oh, no. I feel bad. I thought this would be me with my Wi-Fi.
There's something about streaming.
There we go. Can we? There's movement. I don't know. I guess I'll move us over into the spoiler chat and then come back.
We're talking around a lot.
I know. Trying, especially with the fourth book, it's hard. So
it is. Yeah.
Moving into spoilers. What did you all think of the biggest kind of? I guess my question would be: did it feel like a Jane Austen book to you at all? Because I had that thought while I was reading it.
Very much. Yeah. That's what I was thinking. I loved every second of it.
Like it wasn't Jane Austen at all, but it felt Jane Austen to me.
Yeah.
Do we like this relationship? Where are we at thought-wise?
I love it. And I wasn't ready for it because obviously they throw you off with the Lady Trent angle of it, so you don't realize who she's going to marry in the end, right? So I wasn't prepared for it. And I know Kristen said in the Discord she wanted that moment where Suhail comes and rescues them and all that stuff. And I'd already read that part. She's like, I know we're not going to get that. I'm like, but we are. So
Just wait.
Just wait. It's coming. It's exactly what we get. So yeah, I was all about it. There she is.
Hello, Ben.
Sorry.
You're okay.
We moved on to spoilers.
Yeah, I was like watching while waiting.
We're chatting the relationship because that's what we all wanted.
I was saying in the Discord, you had said you wanted that moment where like Suhail came to the rescue, and I'd already read it, and I was like, "You're gonna get it." You're like, "We're not gonna get that." I know this is not a romance. I'm like, just wait.
It was pretty close to what I said. Like there was no declaration, but like I was very happy with that.
It was a good rescue.
It was a good rescue.
Yeah.
But the Trent thing.
Yes, at the very end.
Was Kristen just saying something about, or was it delayed? Of like that you were worried because of the whole Trent thing.
Yeah,
that's like obviously,
Trent last name, like that's obviously to throw us all off because she knew we'd want her with Suhail in the end. But was it just like a?
I texted Maria. I was like, I'm so upset. I don't want this. I was like, Suhail better not die.
Gonna kill off another person. Yeah.
I know.
Another lover.
Like, why Trent? Did I miss that?
It had to do with the property that she was given as
like
part of.
Name someone like
a duchess now.
What is
given like a land grant or a title, and
like the Cambridges, right? Like it's that same idea where it came, like they're getting that parcel.
Yeah, that makes
What did you all think of the marriage proposal? Because that's where I really shipped them, and I really loved the relationship, but I have complaints about the proposal. I wanted it to be more loving. Yes, because I wanted it to be more emotional, and I feel like Isabella was like, well, this is a convenient solution.
No, because then he was like, well, like, and we could get like, you know, annulled or like whatever the equivalent. And she was like, oh, well, that wasn't my plan, but I thought that was the cute part.
Yeah, I thought it was very her. It just felt very appropriate for her. And I had a note in my thing, it was just the proposal with all these exclamation marks. But I feel like we were building up to that too, because she had that conversation with Andrew about Suhail, and you could tell he was like, I know you're in love with Suhail. So it was like all like building up to that, and I just loved it.
Yeah, no,
I
agree.
liked that everyone. Sorry, Kate, I cut you off.
No, you're good. I was just going to say, I really liked it. I did feel like it was more in line with her character. I was trying to think too, this is somewhat of an aside, but I wasn't the biggest fan of Isabella and Jacob. And so I was trying to think of the fact that I love Suhail and Isabella, and like, what is it that's different about those two? And I think it just feels so much more like on the same level. Like there's not a weird power dynamic between Suhail and Isabella, because they both come from not being able to pursue the thing that they're interested in. And with Jacob, it felt almost like he was tolerant of Isabella, but I didn't feel like he could really understand on the same level. So I really liked seeing Suhail.
I feel like that was the society saying that he had to treat her this way because of like husband and wife, and he was already going outside of the like normal conventions with how he was approaching it, but there was more judgment on them.
Yeah, and I think that's partially true, but I think when you're coming from a position where you don't have to worry about those kinds of things, can you really understand where the other person is coming from? Versus like if you're dealing with some of the same problems, I feel like it's a more equal relationship, which I think is why I like this one better than the one in book one.
Yeah, I definitely like this one better. And I think it's because we were allowed to have that much more development, like the whole, like all of book three, book three? No. Yeah, book three.
Yeah, book three.
Where they're like, just like friends on a trip together sort of thing. Like there was just like, you know, there was that like camaraderie, and they have the time to build with like absolutely no expectations. When he came onto the scene, that was when I was listening to, when my mom was here and we were like both listening to it, I actually paused it and I was like, so are they gonna bang? And that was like, oh, after his like for the first scene that he was in. So
the shirtless jumping off a cliff scene.
Yeah. My mom, of course, was like, "Oh, I wasn't thinking that at all." I was like, "Oh, I immediately shipping any possibility."
Yeah,
I think that's a really good point, Kate, about power dynamic.
Yeah, and I just liked she was like always noticed him in a room, like she always is aware of where he is. I just felt they had more attraction than maybe she had with Jacob. And to be fair, it's like in the first one, there's no build up to the romance. They get married and then they sort of fall in love or get, you know what I mean? Like I'm more of somebody who likes the build up beforehand. Yes. Like it was more of a slow burn, which I appreciate.
And then I thought it was so cute how like everyone was aware of what's up. Like Suhail's sister, Andrew, Tom, Tom and Andrew conspiring to have them like finally chat it out was just so adorable. It was not what I was expecting to get from this book at all. Like this was
neither.
Very, yeah.
And the way she then announced it was like, well, your punishment will be to stand Love that. Yeah, I think I'm Team Jacob and as my prime. Like I think I loved them the most, and I don't know if that's just because I don't really know. I see what you're saying, Kate, about the power dynamics. I do think that I think her and Suhail are more suited to each other, but I think maybe just something about the way that he kind of had to overcome his societal conventions to kind of go against that and put her first was just really sweet. So I loved that. And then I think I want more like on the one hand, this book gave me the like really great tension moments of like, oh, they're not allowed to speak and there's so much scandal and there's like longing glances across the room at each other, or across the desert when we're not in rooms. But I don't feel like they changed, maybe because she doesn't go into it in depth, but like I don't feel like their relationship changed after they got married. I wanted maybe more husband-wife cuteness after. I feel like they kind of continue to they didn't at least have the like scandal of, oh, we can't be seen talking to each other, but I think I wanted more romantic declarations. I don't know.
Didn't they like snuggle up when they were like at the...
Yeah, they're like waiting for it.
That was the one scene I loved. Yeah, when they're listening to the dragons like singing, I loved that. But I wanted more of that. I don't know. I wanted like...
And after the wedding, when she was like, I guess we could stay at this place. He's like, no, like I share you with dragons all the time. Tonight, you all to myself or something. Like, come on.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's the marriage and the proposal for me, because it was more of like there was never an I love you. It was more just like a, yes, I am actually saying this. Let's do
Did
this.
Jacob and Isabella say I love you to each other?
No. I don't know what it is.
Okay, question. Do you think it's because of like the missed potential with Jacob? Like you never, like there was like, when things went down, it was like right at the moment of like the adorable sitting in the tree together or on the cliff or whatever it was when they're like watching the dragons come in. Like that was a really, really adorable scene. Mm-hmm. And so it was like, that was just like, they were just really, you were just getting to see the potential of what could be when things, did you feel like you're like,
actually that does make sense. Yeah. Maybe they were right at the like moment of when they would become so great and we lost that. So maybe, whereas with this, I'm like, I want it to lean more into the romance, which it is kind of like, it's a lot of understating, like kind of like lines you have to read into and declarations in that way. But yeah, I don't know, like in the sandstorm that they get, like I guess she had that moment where she was like, I wish he had been near me, even though like it makes sense he gave us the shelter, but like I wanted him near her too. I don't know. Yes. So I just wanted, and then I think that with the marriage, I just wanted there to be more of a, like I wanted her, I get that they couldn't have any moments, but because they weren't married and it was improper, but I wanted her to have, even if the like marriage proposal came out of nowhere, I wanted her to not be as flippant about it. I think that's where the like biggest thing for me, like I'm on board with them in general. I just wanted that to be done differently.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think part of it for me, at least too, is that Suhail, I'm going to say this, and I know I upset people when I said this when we read the first one. With Jacob, he was too obviously, to my mind, an obstacle to what she was going to be doing. If she was going to do it on her own. So I think I never fully bought into that relationship because from a plot standpoint, I didn't think he was going to stay. Whatever happened, I didn't necessarily think he was going to die, but I thought that he would be an obstacle she'd have to get over in order to make her own name. And so I just never really connected with that. I am curious to see if she just drops Suhail in this last one, like how much of a part he actually plays in the last book, or if it becomes more focused on just her again. So I am very curious about that, because I did like, she makes a comment in I
was like, no,
you're stressed.
But she makes a comment about how not to rush into marriage when she's talking about the marriage contract, because there's a lot of things that she and Suhail are going to have to figure out, coming from pretty different backgrounds and religions and all of that. So I'm curious to see if Brennan handles that at all, or if it's just kind of a throwaway comment.
Mm-hmm. That was a good thing. And actually, going off of that, maybe another thing for me is like, I want more Suhail mentions of the future. Like I want her to say more of like, my husband's thoughts on this. Now that we know, I want there to be more of that. So I hope we get that, because I want to see like them having a life together in future too. Like I want those tidbits.
Agreed. I will be
I started the
super
first.
upset if anything happens to Suhail, I will say.
I started the 5th book, and I won't say.
I do think,
I mean, I'm not far enough into it to really say, but
yeah, my prediction is he's going to be a big part of it, because I think that maybe even the architecture storyline was set up. Either she wanted to go into that storyline and he was created for the purposes of fitting into it, or the storyline was created for the purposes of fitting him into it.
And that whole storyline with the stone and figuring out the language, I feel like that's so much him. And I'm like hoping we obviously have a feeling that'll be a big part of the final book, because what would be the point of it otherwise, right?
Yes.
I'm
Yeah,
hoping
that's
that's all like, yeah, like I'm hoping that that's a huge focus of this one.
Yeah, which, let's talk about the ending then, because like the discoveries we've been hinting at, that's what bothered me, is that like it was the stone that she found that she gave to him, then they found the ruins in the second or the third book. Now we found like this even more, just big discovery of ruins, and it's just too much for one person to realize and like to find and notice. Sorry, Kristen. We'll wait for you when you're ready. But yeah, I feel like that, and then I also agree with what Kristen Book was saying earlier about how then is she going to have discoveries about dragons at all in her field?
Mm-hmm.
And if she does, I'm going to be excited about them. But is that too many things for one person?
Yeah, because I feel like she does rely on convenience a lot, but I kind of just go with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I was about to say I don't mind it as much, just because I can roll with it. I don't really care.
Yeah.
I mean, it is very convenient, but it's not been. I have read other books where I was more annoyed by it. So
The convenience, yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it bothered me a lot, but I noticed it. I was just more like, is this realistic? It's fine, but
yeah.
And actually noticed it more on reread, I would say. I don't think it bothered me first time around.
Yeah, I could see that.
And Maria, how come you never read the 5th one? You were so close, or were you already caught up and then we started this?
I was binging them. I read them all pretty much back to back, like end of November to December. And then Kristen messaged me, like, so you want to do a read along? Like, I should
time to restart.
Yeah. Probably stop and maybe read the last one with everyone, since everything else I've already consumed.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Like my overall feelings, I feel like it both made me like the series more because we went into such detail and talked about it, but also made me more aware of its flaws because I had read it so close back to back and we went into detail. I wonder, like, not that my thoughts have changed that much on it, but when I was binging it through, I was kind of going more with it, whereas now I'm picking up on things because I'm no longer, like, the first time I read this book, I was flying through just trying to figure out how the Suhail storyline was going to go. This time I was paying attention to everything else a bit more.
Yeah, because I do think that's in nature. Like, we're picking them apart.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look on Goodreads, it's like glowing reviews because they're just it's kind of a fun series. It's so unique. So like, I don't obviously marathon book series. That's not me, but I can see you doing that with this one and just having a great time because it's so much going on. It's so much fun. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the books aren't very long. So if you're not, it's not like you're reading a Brandon Sanderson series or something. So like,
yeah. And it does feel like more like one extended story. So it's less about like, oh, this one had more dragons, this one had more relationships. It's kind of just like this long story of her life.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And I actually like that. I think for me, it works better to be reading the back to back because while I liked the first one, I read it and then I waited months before I picked it up again for us doing this read along. And I think that the first one doesn't necessarily sell you on the series, and it takes multiple books to really get hooked into you want to see what happens next. So I do think this works better to binge than some other ones.
Yeah. The tough part is I think book 2 was a lot of ours. Well, I mean, I think book 3 we were the most critical on, but book 2 I think we also enjoyed less. So it's like you almost need to get to book 4.
I think that's true. The payoff is in book 4.
Yeah, which is a lot of books to get through, but they're short. And we still overall liked them. Kristen says she does talk about how lucky she's been, but also that she takes more risks and puts herself out there a lot more than some other people in her field, which
that's true.
I completely
agree with that.
Yeah.
And we haven't talked about the dragons in this one yet either.
Oh, hello.
She's struggling.
I'm going to speak for her. I agree, Kate. I think the first book isn't the best hook. Yeah, I've heard a lot of people read book 1 and then stop there.
Stop.
Yep.
I could see the ending maybe like with Jacob and everything.
It's also enough of a standalone that you
Yeah.
Yes.
yeah. What were you gonna say, Kristen, before that?
I'm saying we haven't talked about the dragons yet either.
Oh yes.
I know you didn't love the dragons as much in this one.
I still love them. I think the mating stuff, and I'm kind of curious what you all think, because I think the taxonomy, like comparisons of book 3 interested me more. I thought that was a scientific question that I was more interested in, like how do we define what is a dragon and which species, what they have in common. I was less interested in like how do we mate them in captivity, but I do like the way she went about it with the scientific discovery in that way.
And yeah, and like the captivity stuff was kind of sad, like the way they were treated and all that stuff, and then all the issues they were having. But like Lumpy, I'm in love with.
Oh, Lumpy!
Actually, I have it here. My favorite illustration in the entire book. There's Lumpy.
Oh, I always forget about the illustrations.
Yes, look how cute Lumpy
I
is.
really like them.
Oh, I love Lumpy so much. So that's my favorite illustration so far.
Sorry, really side note. The text in this one is like orange in the hardcover.
Yeah, in the hardcovers, eh?
So weird.
So weird. The book itself is
that's why I got the paperback, because I can't do I know all the hardcovers have the colored text, and I just can't do it.
Weird. It's a weird choice.
Is the fifth one green?
I haven't opened it, so probably.
Blue.
I know one of them. I've already read blue. Blue was third. Second was brown. So probably one of them's green.
I think it's probably green. It's a weird choice.
It's a very weird choice.
Yeah, I really actually loved getting the mating flight and like the hatching of the eggs and all that stuff, because it was more, I was intensely interested in how the dragons acted. And the funny part is that the mating flight reminded me really strongly of Dragon Riders of Pern, which I loved as a teenager, and like it's almost exactly the same. Like
that Anne McCaffrey.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I read those.
I'm gonna read them soon. I'm excited.
They're tough modern day now, because she has the way she treats, like talks about some of the like gay characters in it, and like the relationships between men and women are not great. I mean, like I have a ton of nostalgia, so I love it, but I can recognize why other people don't. So
I think Murphy Napier like read them recently and was like pretty upset with some of the stuff.
No, she
bailed
bailed out.
I don't remember them.
One.
Yeah. I don't remember.
Read the first one recently and said it was like Aragon pre-Aragon. Which
absolutely.
Because I love Aragon, so I'm kind of, for that reason, I want to like at least give it a try.
Yeah, but you know that Aragon is Aragon because that one was what it was, right?
Also, Aragon, like Lord of the Rings,
It borrows very heavily from the way it handles it, but that's the way it goes. So it's, I do worry a little bit for people who pick it up now, just because I don't know that it holds up very well for a modern reader. The dragons still do; they're still fun, but there's some issues there.
Good to know.
That's how I feel about the Fiona Bar Tapestry. It's like same thing. Like I love it. I absolutely love it. It is one of my favorite books ever. But watching Taylor read it recently was like really, really painful. There's a lot in there that doesn't work anymore. Yeah, it's really aged.
Yeah. Talking about the dragons in this one again, I was gonna say I'm almost surprised. I think, and again, my criticisms on this are just because I did reread it, so I feel like I was picking it apart a bit more. But it bothered me a little that Isabella was almost, I feel like she was less passionate about dragons in this one. Like, I feel like there was that whole thing about we're now introducing the honey seekers.
Yeah.
The cute little hummingbird dragons. That like I feel like we should have been told, or she should have been like excited about owning 2 dragons. That we never had.
When did the honey seekers? I thought they were just like introduced as if it was a known fact.
Yeah, I think it was like between book 3 and book 4. She was like, "Oh, and I did these."
You know, I always read about articles of the books after I read them, and actually, the Honey Seekers, it was a contest that readers could create dragons for the book, and Honey Seekers won. So I'm like, so she wasn't prepared for this. She just threw them in because this. And I think there's a dragon species in the 5th one from a contest as well.
I'm really
I'll have to look
at it because that makes much more sense.
Yeah, so it was like a reader created dragon that she included in the story, and I'm like, I'm surprised she made them such a big role. They had like an important part.
Yeah, for the sign.
So, like, it wasn't like plotted out beforehand. Yeah, so like this was like in between, I guess, the 3rd and the 4th book or something. This was a contest went on. I'll have to look in the next book. There's a dragon species from that too.
Yeah, I think part of it I'm less bothered by because of the memoir setup that she's got, because there's a lot of things that happen that it's like she's just not talking about. And it's kind of annoying, but also fits in with the style of it. So it bothers me a little bit less. I just kind of roll with it because it's a thing that happened between the last memoir and this memoir type of thing, you know?
I just expected her to be more excited about the fact that there were little mini dragons that she could hold and touch and, like, be the owner of. It's like pet dragons. You'd think that this would be her dream come true. And then there were some things where, like, they would see, I think, eggs hatch once, and I get that they were in the desert and probably, like, A, for page space and B, for, like, survival reasons. That was all they needed to see once, but I feel like she even said, I think at one point that and it could be just the heat because I also hate heat, but she said something like, "Oh, the heat was bothering me so much," and the fact that there were no more new scientific observations to make. I'm like, you can observe baby hatchlings. Like, sure, they.
Yeah, I was surprised she wasn't freaking out more about the baby dragon.
It's like, where is your excitement?
She was too busy snuggling with Suhail, Maria.
She's more excited about Suhail than she's too distracted.
This book was about the romance. Like that, there was surprisingly for how much time of it they were like purposefully trying not to appear that they like knew each other or whatever. It was a lot more about that. But I see what you mean about the passion. That's how I feel like she seemed a little bit less in this book overall. Like less of everything.
Personality.
Yeah, she felt more like a scientist to me in this one, like detached, and less like someone who was super passionate about dragons. Not that you can't be both, just that she definitely seemed more detached in this one.
Yeah, and maybe that's like, that's what happens when you become more established in your field and you kind of, it stops being new to you. But as someone who, like, I'm reading about this because I'm excited about this opportunity for her, I just wanted more of that personality.
Yeah.
What about the whole poison storyline? What did we all think on that? I feel like that was another.
Who was responsible again? It was Yelling, right?
Yeah.
The China equivalent. Yeah.
That was kind of another one of those like rescue moments with Suhail that we had.
Yeah, we had a few of those.
Oh yeah, because he like tracks down the guy. Oh my God, Suhail.
But I'm like, weren't you weak yesterday because you had been poisoned? You were like barely standing. But sure, we're gonna follow him into this.
No, it was like
they're always getting sick in these books.
It's great though.
I'm trying to remember like how much of a big deal did they tie it back that was responsible for like her kidnapping too?
Yeah, and then the fire as well.
The fire, yeah. It was like
why?
Because they were trying to stop them from like succeeding with their attempts to breed, but they honestly, even without sabotage, they weren't getting far. So,
okay, I take it back. I think that is Sarah would probably find fault with this plot line. I think
the Yellingies.
Yeah. Being sort of like villainized, like they're definitely the.
But on the other hand, like if you're in one country and the other country is at war with you, and they're coming and like poisoning you, kidnapping you, and setting fire, like that kind of is. I don't know. It's not that they were villainized for who they were villainized for what they were doing to them.
I think that I think that it's the fact that it's like the China equivalent, and like they're doing all of these villainous behaviors is sort of the like. But I don't know. I think it's interesting, like how caught up this country is with Lady Trent. Why is nobody going? I guess Tom was also being poisoned, was he?
Yeah, they were trying to like stop him from being poisoned.
And he was kidnapped too. Okay, I always forget that Tom is also suffering.
He's always there. He's just not the focus.
Yeah.
Well, they aren't so obviously China, then it's not a problem.
Yeah, she said lazy world building.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Agreed. Very fair.
I kind of hope that they don't just. I'm curious to see in the next book, because it felt a little bit, not that it wasn't built up, but it felt a little bit thrown in, and like I want to see more of it, because she makes comments about like, how can you really tell where war starts? Like, was it in the previous book when she stole the ship from them, or like where is it going to start? So I hope they build on it more, because otherwise it doesn't feel like you did anything with it. You just made them villains and then moved on to something else. So I hope they expand on it more.
yeah, like the real motives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or just
And
have
they have
I think the books are big enough for that.
No, they're not. They're not.
Yeah.
Does everybody have WhatsApp? Sarah's posted something in WhatsApp.
Oh.
In her WhatsApp chat.
As if she's already made,
Like, that's what she's
made
doing.
a Science Buddies logo.
Sarah, we would buy this.
And we'll share it on the Discord.
Science Buddies merch. That would be great. I want it on a mug.
That's cute.
I love that.
Is there a way to make it obvious that Tom is like pale and a redhead? Isn't that he's a redhead? He's definitely pale. She's always talking about him being like sunburn. Yeah.
Every time he's like burning as a sun, I'm like, yes, Tom, I feel you.
Yeah, I felt so bad for him.
Oh, definitely being productive.
I think the words you're looking for are inspired by this amazing series that you're clearly so into.
Oh, for sure. I really do love the series deep down. You would if you make merch.
There's airships in the 5th book.
Are there?
Ooh. I'm definitely ready for more of that.
Okay. Yeah, I like the whole, and I think I've said this in previous lives about the whole concept of this being I don't think she did a good political, I don't even know what I'm saying. I don't think she did a good job of making the political storylines on a like deeper level very well thought through, but I love the concept of how Dragon Bone is causing political problems. I think that was really well developed, because even when at the end of this one we kind of have hints that, oh, Skirling has now figured out a way to synthesize Dragon Bone, there's now this problem of like, oh, well, they're going to obviously keep it to themselves and not share it. So the rest of the world is still going to hunt down these poor dragons and try to kill them off. So we're still back to like square A with having the same problem if we want to, save these creatures from extinction. And I feel like that's a very realistic dilemma that doesn't have very easy solutions, but I really like that she kind of set up.
Yeah, I do get a little worried for this last book, because there's so many things to tie up for this. And like, I'm definitely gonna do the optional one, just because I'm curious if you jump it forward with another character, if you get more of that, because I feel worried that she's not going to tie up enough in this last one. Like, I've loved this whole series so far, but it's going to be tough.
That's why finales are usually double the size.
And how long is this one? I don't think it's
same.
I don't think it's super
it's
long.
It's not terribly long, yeah. I heard that the 6th one, the companion piece, is like it ties up stuff that isn't tied. Like it has to do with something that is under the surface or like a background plot. My guess is draconic stuff. Is that what that is?
I'd be all for that, because I liked that in this one at the very end. I wanted more of that. So
are we all?
You want the Suhail memoirs?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll take that.
I want the Andrew adventures. I want him to go off.
Oh, I love Andrew so much. I hope
And
Andrew's in
how
this
excited
fifth
he
one.
was at the discovery. He was like, "We're not leaving until I find treasure."
Yeah.
I like how into it he was.
And then what's going to say about Andrew? I feel like Andrew brings out a more fun side of Lady Trent, which I like. So I feel like we need him because he brings out like a lighter. They have like good banter. I'm all about banter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought it was really funny. There were a lot of moments where like when she comes out in pants and he's like, "Oh, stop! I love it for your behavior." Or like the moments where he says like, "If I didn't follow you into like the labyrinth, what would Mom say?" I'm never able to go home. It's like this really problematic thing of her family dynamics, but yeah, he's trivializing it in like this really funny way. I like it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I loved Andrew. I mean, I like family dynamics in this kind of story anyway. I'm usually a sucker for that, but he was fun to have a different side of her. And like a family connection, because it definitely seems like her family lets her down pretty frequently. So it's nice to see.
I thought her dad had died, to be honest. And then there was a comment about how they just weren't close, but I'm like, he actually was pretty good to you.
Yeah, and then he just kind of
set up the marriage with Jacob.
Yeah, and he
responsible for the marriage and with Jacob in the first place, and like
yeah,
what she wanted. Yeah,
knew that she was reading his books all that time, and
but all we got was the mom.
Yeah, the mom and the other brother. The other brother I got pretty annoyed with in the previous one. But
that was the brother-in-law, right? I think that was.
Was it brother-in-law? I don't remember.
No,
I was just like, come on, man.
Her brother also did something at the beginning of the. Didn't he like invite her over and then like?
Yes, and then abandon her
and then not be there. Yeah, it was like an ambush with the mom.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, you're right. I forgot about that. Trying to think if we haven't discussed anything. The egg chamber, I guess. What do we think? So we get that kind of that big reveal at the end that like, oh, dragon eggs, if they're treated in certain ways, can actually create different species. So do we think that that's like that the chamber had actually had a previous type of dragon, or do we think that I almost find it like I find it hard to believe that they had advanced so much in the draconian civilization. I don't know if that's just me because I don't know. I feel like there isn't enough evidence for the beliefs she's making. I don't know if you all have that feeling.
I don't know enough information about that culture, like how that culture came to fall, sort of thing, like why they have like no information about it. Maybe that was casually referenced in the first book, but I don't feel like I know enough to like make any leaps. I also am like a little bit spoiled already from the beginning of the fifth book.
That's what I'm thinking too.
I have answers.
Okay, well, at least you get the answer.
That's what I'm thinking too.
I'm glad there are answers because it is very mysterious right now. So I'd like to get more of that because I would agree that there's comments about how she doesn't think that they're the same type of species, but there's not really enough evidence that she can point to. She's just like she just has like a gut feeling that they're not the same because she doesn't find any evidence really. So I would be curious.
This is what upsets me is that like her big thing that made her like hugely famous was like for Suhail.
Yeah.
Yep. In the ruins. But I guess it'll all like maybe that's where we'll get that big reveal of how it all ties in, because I feel like we have the plot thread of like Dragonbone and that problem. We have the whole like did the Draconians actually have a species of dragons that they domesticated? We have the like ruins and then all of that kind of those discoveries. We have the kind of what makes a dragon, like how do we define dragons and which species are actually connected. We have the how do we mate them in captivity. Like, it's just a lot of things. And I don't know if we're supposed to be kind of, if it's a web that's supposed to come together, or she's just introducing all these different things that she then wants us to kind of be thinking about.
I had always felt like the things that she was casually referencing in the first couple books of being like, hey, why are these, what were the dragonfly-like ones in the first one? Sparklers?
Sparklings, yeah.
Like, I had been getting the sense that she was going to create like a new classification system. Like, I thought that was going to be the big thing that she did. And like, maybe that still happens. I'm not sure, but it doesn't feel like that's the path that we're going down. I don't know, because there's this whole like the egg. I feel like the embryo thing that she got in the third book. Like, I feel like that's, I don't know. I agree. Like, I feel like there's too many possible pieces. And like, she went on this whole voyage of like looking at all this stuff. And it's like, did she make any contribution from that? Like, it sounds like she's just sort of like, she had the one article that she released and then like had to retract, and then I don't know if she made anything else that was like after that. Now she just like does talks about her like voyages, but like I don't know, it bothers me that there's like too many different things going on, and that she doesn't seem to have made any significant discovery. And even the whole like the fact that the bones could be preserved or whatever, that was like, she stole that from somebody else right away in the first book. So like, I don't know.
Sounds like Marie Brennan didn't have a plan to begin with and is discovering them as she writes. Or she's kind of trying to do this like big twist and not giving us information so that we get the big twist.
Well, she always does give those like, ooh, like she's casually referencing sometimes that she hadn't pieced everything together yet, you know, or like that she was making aware like observances that came together later. So it's like, I do think there's going to be something. I just like, I hope that it's
good,
not disappointing. Yeah.
I'm worried it'll be like twice the size of her other endings in that like explosive way. Whereas I almost, and maybe this is just me because I'm like reading these as someone who like is living vicariously through them. I almost want it to be like a small, not small, but like a scientific discovery that is not that big, but that does change like even classification. Because I think that's what you find in kids. You discover like, oh, actually, you know, you prove things that people kind of already know, but then like you actually prove it, and then you're like, yes, now we have evidence.
But we know she's not great with endings.
Yeah. So
I definitely feel like it's going to be an explosion again in the last book. When you do that, I think it's so much harder to tie things together in a satisfying way. Like, it's a fun, epic moment, but I don't know that you can really tie it together completely doing endings that way every time. So it'll be interesting to see.
And I think that you're right. It's probably like that's why that sixth book came out. Because maybe you have to tie up some loose ends. And it's her granddaughter, right?
Yeah, I
the
think
main character. So it's like her looking back and everything that's changed. I don't know, but
I've heard it's sort of like mixed media.
Is it?
Interesting.
That's what I've heard. I've heard it's like newspaper articles and stuff, and I'm really worried about that. I don't know. I hope that Scribd has the.
I was gonna say, how would that be on audio?
And not, exactly. Even on ebook, even on ebook, that stuff is never quite.
That's hard to
the same.
I wonder if it's even on Scribd.
I have seen it on Scribd.
It is on Scribd?
Format. Yeah, I'm not sure what format it was on.
Checking.
I kind of almost wish that the like draconian stuff had been a second series.
Yeah.
I feel like that's where she wanted to focus it, but that's not where she started the focus at. So
yeah. The audiobook is on Scribd for that one, and it's actually long. It's almost 12 hours.
Oh, that's substantially longer.
I'm gonna grab the book.
Well, yeah, an hour and 34 minutes. But they've all been between 10 hours and then 12.
It's shorter than the book we just read.
Oh wow.
Also, it's purple. So
It's purple.
Yeah.
Purple seems better than green, at least.
Are there like news? Is it like noticeably? Is it noticeably mixed media? Like, are there like newspaper clippings?
oh, sorry, this is the 5th one. I don't have that.
That's
okay.
the fifth one.
Sorry.
I was flipping through and I did see the before and after of Mary Trent and Ian. I thought that was cute.
The one that's double-sized is the Turning Darkness.
The Turning the Dark, that's bigger.
Got
But
it.
the ebooks on there as well.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have the physical version of that that last one, but I don't know where it is. So I'll have to go look at it.
Are we continuing that as part of the read-along? Have we decided?
I'll probably pick it up, but it's totally up to you guys whether you want to.
Yeah, I'm
I kind of want the
Up to it.
discussion on it. Though.
yeah.
Yeah, I want to know because I don't think I have doubts about her tying things up in a way that's going to make me want to just leave it there.
Oh wait, Sarah says I have the physical and it is mixed media, but just text. But there are
Okay.
footnotes.
Sometimes I like those, sometimes I don't. So
Interesting.
Yeah, I'm looking at it at Scribd. It's like letters from Audrey to Charlotte. It looks like a lot of letters back and forth.
Interesting.
I don't
That
love
can be
this trend of
fun,
doing footnotes. I feel like it only works for specific books.
And footnotes on audio I do not like, so I won't be listening.
Yeah,
to
they're
What
tough on
what books
audio.
with footnotes on audio are? How do they go on audio that you're?
For
I
Pratchett
feel like
they
those-
do it as like a
Yeah.
sides.
Is it the same voice?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is why A Chorus of Dragons is the best series. They have a few different voices that they're using, like for different characters. And so because the footnotes are specifically by a particular character, it'll be like in somebody's chapter with that person's voice, and then suddenly like the footnote voice will be like blah 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 blah. Like it's clearly a footnote because it's a totally different voice, like it's somebody else talking.
Those ones are good in audio, not in ebook though. It was hard to follow an ebook.
Yeah, ebook.
Because you have to go
Footnotes are
like,
tough.
yeah.
Yeah, I used to not read Pratchett at all in ebook because it was too annoying to flip back and forth with the footnotes.
Interesting. So wait, Sarah, if you own this one, are you planning on reading this one, or are you calling it quits on Unhauling?
I think
Sarah?
they did say they were open to this one. I think in one of our
Maybe because it's not like Isabella that we're following.
would her granddaughter be that much different?
Maybe.
Totally different
Jacob's
generation.
Jake's daughter.
I bought it a long
Yeah,
time
I'm
ago.
assuming it's Jake's daughter, right? Do we think that's Suhail and Lady
Maybe
Trent?
Suhail.
You know what I think? I bought it a long time ago. I like that they have like absolutely made no big deal about like the mixed race couple.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Just like not even mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. So that's something that she's done.
It's a good
sweetly.
point. Yeah, that is a really good point. I would potentially read it, but probably not soon.
That's
Fair.
fair.
Very fair. And I feel like the way that they also kind of talked about in that paragraph, I forget it was Kate or Kristen, one of you brought that up about that paragraph where she said, like, I don't necessarily advise getting married young.
Mm-hmm.
And she talked about kind of things that like you would have to consider. She also never really touched on that being an issue. It was more of like things that any couple would have to consider of like, where would they live and which name would they take? How would they meld their religions if they had a kid? So it just felt very like respectful in that way too.
Yeah, it did make me wonder if it's gonna come up, like if Suhail is in this last book, if some of those issues will come up. Because I actually like seeing that in when you have relationships between characters and it's not just like they ride off into the sunset. Like you actually get to see them work out some of those problems. So I'll be curious to see if it was just a throwaway comment or if you actually get to see some of that.
Or if they'll have any tension on like their discoveries or anything like that. That's
Yeah.
interesting.
I can see you guys trying not to say anything.
I'm like, I started
It is either frozen or trying to not say anything. Love it.
Sorry. Just this
It's
morning.
so hard to not like read this so quickly, especially with the audio. It just
Yep.
flies by.
Listen, you made me pause and not read the 5th book until like 6 months
I
later.
know.
I don't know how.
Yeah, the audio
I
is
do
so
think-
fun. I like
Yeah,
it.
I would listen to
Yeah.
something else by this narrator for sure. If she's done
Same.
more, I don't know.
Oh,
Kate-
she does
Kate
a
Reed?
ton.
She
Does
does a
she?
lot, yeah. She's
But obviously all
she's-
fantasy that I haven't explored.
Mhm.
she's like the go-to for what's his name? Sanders.
Sanderson.
Okay.
Wheel of Time,
Yeah.
I think? Is Wheel
Yep.
of Time her?
She did Wheel of Time, although that one I don't like as much because it's her and
Okay.
Michael Kramer and they pronounce things differently. It's like, guys,
Oh yeah.
I needed you to communicate about this.
Mhm. Yeah. But like the big, I guess, fantasy tone, so I don't know.
That's weird that they would
I don't know that I'll ever get to
let
Sanderson.
them do that.
Yeah. Weird that they let them do what? What were we saying? Are we frozen? Oh, what were you about? You cut off. I didn't hear what you said.
You cut off, yeah.
Kristen? Story book with an E?
I cut
Kristen
off?
with an E?
Yeah, you cut off.
Yeah,
I don't know what I was about to say.
Anywho, any other thoughts? Predictions? Trying to think of, we touched on all the characters. The shake was mostly there just for like the brother obstacle.
Yeah, to add some.
Mm-hmm.
And like I felt bad for the camels a lot in this. That's something I noticed.
Yes.
Like poor camels in this. They were just every 2 seconds like, oh, the poor camels.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there was a lot. Like we said, it's like poisoning, kidnapping, fire. There was a lot more of that. I was like, geez. But yeah, I enjoyed it.
Yeah. I liked the conversation about guns and kind of her. I felt like that was almost the author dropping in her opinions, but I still thought it was an interesting thing from Isabella to bring up of like, do I want to learn how to defend myself in this way? Will it then mean that that's my first instinct when I'm in those future situations? I thought that was an interesting kind of, I do think she maybe should have learned something, like some sort of self-defense. And they talked about her, like she talked about herself training in future for like the next expedition. So there was that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I hope there's a little less rescuing of her because of that in
That's
this
true.
last one, because it felt like it was leading towards maybe her not needing that as much. Because if I have a gripe about that, I do wish that she didn't necessarily rely on them as much for that kind of thing.
And she has that flyaway comment about how she does either rely on like dragons to be her weapon or people to come in and save her.
I do like she recognized that too, that like using
Yeah.
dragons is not necessarily better than like using a gun.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're still killing people.
Responsible.
So
Yeah, that was good. I feel like I feel like there were a lot of like moments of self-reflection in this book.
More self-awareness.
Yeah, I felt that too.
I feel like there was some related to Jake as well, weren't there? Oh wait, Kate, you never filled us in, or maybe it was when I was off. Thanks, Sarah. About the thing that she like hesitates to do is like she's gonna do something crazy and then she stops.
Oh yeah.
yeah, it's when they pass by the labyrinth like the first time, like when they're I don't remember what they're doing, but she's about to like ride her camel or horse. I don't remember. She's about to ride in there because she wants to follow the drake that was hunting.
Oh yeah,
And she doesn't. He stops her. Whatever guide they're with.
It was
stops
Tom,
her.
and then Tom is the one who talks to her about it.
Yeah, and she actually recognizes that she doesn't like it, but she recognizes that they're right, which I appreciated.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
I will admit that I identified with her a little bit, where like she's recognizing that her default response is you told me no, so I'm going to go do it. I felt for her a little bit there, but I was glad she made the better decision.
And I think a lot of that comes down to like she respects Tom.
Yes.
So she's like more likely to listen to Tom than most other people.
There's also that one other moment, funny comment, where she's like wants to say something snappy back to like the captain or colonel or something. She's like restrains herself. So maybe she's maturing.
Yeah, I definitely felt like she got better at holding her tongue. I did laugh. I think it's during the marriage proposal. She talks about the clerk that like oversees the things that she says and is just like giving up. And so she says a bunch of stuff.
Both times I read it, I thought it was the funniest thing.
Yeah, I think it's great.
I would have to put it in our Discord because it was just hilarious. Yeah, but it's our poor overworked clerk.
Yeah.
So good. Yep.
When do you think you're going to read the next one? The last one?
When are we doing our next live? Do we prefer beginning of the month for July?
Yes.
Okay. Then I guess in the next few weeks.
Yeah, I have commitments I have to do this next week, but I'm probably going to be jumping into the last one basically as soon as I can.
I know. I tried to wait. I tried to wait for this live show, but somehow I just started it this morning. I couldn't. I'm like, it's close enough.
It's a good
it's fine.
Yeah, close enough.
I've just been trying everything. I can't
see what sticks. Yeah, see what sticks.
Yeah.
As I said, romance.
Yeah. No, I'm absolutely. When you said that, I was like, that's exackly what I need.
Yeah.
And I just like, I don't. None of the books.
Yeah.
I've read the first, like the sample part of a bunch, and then I always get so upset because I'm like, no, I want to know what happens next. I always spend, like, admittedly, this is horrible. A horrible thing that I do is when I read samples, if it really, really catches me, then I spend like 30 minutes like searching online for a copy, and then I'm like, don't do it, Kristen. I never do like get the pirated downloads or whatever, but like I look for sure because I'm like, I must know what happens. I'll buy it later. Like,
I don't think I've ever read a sample before.
Yeah, I don't have.
I don't need to pick up that habit. I don't need to pick up.
I have, but then sometimes they've turned me off of books, and then I'll come back to the book later. And like I read the sample for Assassin's Apprentice, and remember thinking it was really like hard writing style to get into. And then maybe because we'd read, I don't know, other books by her, I didn't have that when we actually read it. And then I read The Lies of Locke Lamora sample, and I'm still intimidated by that book. But I feel like once I pick it up, it won't feel, I don't know what it was about the sample that felt like hard to get into as well.
I usually only do it when a book is available and I'm like, is this what I'm in the mood for?
Yeah.
But then occasionally if I like in a mood like this, when I like just really want to read something, I'll be like, well, I'll just start it. There's no harm in that. And then there's harm.
There's harm.
But at least get into it. Yeah. Well, okay. I think she's like, okay.
There, you're right.
We're calling our internet provider on my first thing Monday morning.
Yeah, that's it. You're in a new city, new apartment, new internet. There we go.
Shout out to my internet for actually working this time.
Yeah, right.
Okay. Well, I was gonna say if we don't have any other like chat or spoilery thoughts on this book, we could always just chat off the stream as well about random stuff.
It kept cutting out. I don't know. Were you talking to me?
No, I was talking to everyone. If we don't have any other spoiler thoughts, we can wrap it up here and then just chat, if anything, off of the stream. But I think we've covered everything. I can't think of anything.
I think so.
Yeah. An hour and 40 minutes later.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we got through it all.
I do feel like there should have been more criticism because I wonder if Sarah would have caught stuff we didn't, or maybe this book was just better.
I do think it was better because I always looked for things Sarah might pick out.
Yes.
But I didn't really notice too much.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was more obvious in the last book, but.
Yeah, but this one it was, I guess, less about the people and more about like Isabel.
The romance.
Going on stuff, yeah.
Mm-hmm. It was a romance. I was happy about it.
Was indeed. All right. Well, I don't know if we'll get Kristen back to say bye,
No.
but if anyone watched this now, thank you, Sarah, for hanging out, chatting with us. Anyone else who watched, thank you so much for chatting with us or watching this. If you're watching it back on playback later, let us know if you have any thoughts on this book down below in the comments. And we do have Kristen back. Is that all of us again?
There we go.
Kristen, thank you for being so. I don't know if you're
Super.
but yeah, thank you for your effort of jumping in.
Yeah, because that's frustrating.
So frustrating.
Yeah.
I feel for you. Yeah. Well, I'm gonna cut it off here, but thank you to everyone for watching, and see you
Thanks,
for
everyone.
the last book.
Yeah.